Good morning on this Friday, March the 26th, 2021. Let it be known we have a great show this morning. We will be talking with someone I consider like an original girl dad, Denise Rolark-Barnes, the fabulous publisher of the Washington Informer, and she's missed everything. So don't miss Denise this morning. But first, of course, we'd like to bring on our president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Dr. Ben Chavis. Good morning, Dr. Chavis.
Good morning, Stacy. How are you? And on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, representing the Black Press of America, we welcome everybody to this special edition of Let It Be Known. There's a lot of headlines affecting the quality of life for Black America. We're going to get right into it. Thank you, Stacy. It's another Friday, and this has been another historic week for Black America.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Chavis, President Biden held his first news conference on Thursday, where he noted, among other things, that he is well ahead of his goal to get 100 million COVID vaccine shots in the arms of citizens in his first 100 days. He said because they achieved that number in about half that time, his new goal is to get 200 million shots in the arms of Americans by day 100. The Biden-Harris administration also announced a series of actions to expand access to COVID-19 vaccines to the hardest hit and highest risk communities across the country. With funding in large part from the American Rescue Plan, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services will invest nearly $10 billion to expand access to vaccines and better serve communities of color, low-income populations, and other underserved communities in the COVID-19 response. It was an action-packed press conference, to say the least, Dr. Chavis.
Yes, it was. And the Black Press, we're going to work with the Department of Health and Human Services to get the word out, to raise public consciousness. I've had both of my shots, and a lot of our publishers I've heard around the country have had their shots, and some are planning to get their shots ASAP. This is a matter of life and death. This is a matter of good health versus bad health. And this is not just for individuals, it's the whole family. Because once one person is infected in the family, the whole family is at risk. So for the sake of your family, the sake of your community, and Lord knows for the sake of yourself, everybody should try to get vaccinated.
Yeah, and you can read a whole lot more, including what the president had to say about the filibuster in papers like the Washington Informer and, of course, blackpressusa.com. Governor Tate Reeves of Mississippi has signed Senate Bill 2759. It raises the monthly temporary assistance for needy families benefits by $90 in that state. Mississippi has the lowest temporary assistance for needy families benefit in the country, just $170 per month for a family of three.
That's terrible.
That is terrible. The SPLC Action Fund said it supports this increase in the funding, which is badly needed for struggling Mississippi families. And they said they will continue to work with the governor and the legislature to try and increase upon that. Dr. Chavis, it is terrible.
Right. And shout out to the Mississippi Link and to the Jackson Advocate, two of our member NMPA newspaper publications in the state of Mississippi. They're both on the case, and we're going to be confirming with them. And also to the young mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, Chuck Lumumba. I knew his father, and he's carrying on a tradition now to help lead the city far, in spite of the recalcitrance of the state government of Mississippi, retarding the progress of African Americans and others. But what President Biden said yesterday is going to affect all of the states, including Mississippi, Georgia, and other states that are also doing voter suppression right now. Stacey, one of the things we have to pay attention to is we have to continue to encourage people to register to vote, get out to vote, and don't let these voter suppression tactics hold us back. There's a lot at stake.
It's a whole lot at stake, absolutely. And Dr. Chavis, this morning, our thoughts are with a noted and extremely talented Baltimore entertainer, Gina Barallone. A GoFundMe page has been established by her kids seeking assistance as she battles pancreatic cancer. On the GoFundMe page, Gina, who heads Ms. B Productions, a great talent. I've had the privilege of seeing her perform. She says that it all started with just a slight stomach ache in June of 2020. She thought it was just a GYN issue, and she made an appointment and thought perhaps it was about fibroids. Well, it turned out to be pancreatic cancer, and she currently has 2 stents placed in her pancreatic bile ducts to keep the jaundice that she has from recurring, and she receives infusions twice a month. She attends doctor visits every week, either for checkups, chemo infusions, or blood work. Gina also has begun physical therapy twice a week because the cancer has weakened her muscles and she's lost muscle mass in her lower and upper extremities. She says it's a much painful and devastating experience for anyone to have to go through, not counting that her head is still spinning with disbelief of having cancer. Extremely talented individual. She has set up, like we said, a GoFundMe page. Well, her children have set it up. You can go there to show your support for this immensely talented person. I tell you, Dr. Chavis, she's the type of person that years from now we'll look back and she'll be the one that we say, look at her. She is doing her thing. She looked that cancer in the eye and she never gave up, and she's still here with us.
Well, having faith support is very important when you're facing these serious illness like cancer. And we send our prayers to her. We support the family, encourage everybody to support that funding campaign to help that family on its way. And this is still Women's History Month. And so we give a shout out to Sister Gina, and we wish her all the best. And I know she's getting great medical care there in Maryland. And again, we wish her all the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And this morning, I mentioned at the top, an original girl dad, as that phrase was coined, unfortunately, after the death of Kobe Bryant. But here is someone who proudly takes after her dad, who has taken over the business for her dad from her dad. Our publisher in Washington, Denise Rolark-Barnes of the Washington Informer. Good morning, Denise.
Good morning.
Once you come off mute, Denise, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if this was self-serve or what, but but good morning to both of you all. It's good to see you. And I have to remember that phrase, Stacey, original girl dad. I'm gonna get a T-shirt that says that.
There you
Absolutely.
go. And
well, you had a great dad. I knew Calvin Rolark. He was one of the strongest voices for self-empowerment, for the District of Columbia getting voting rights, becoming a state, self-determination. You couldn't do anything and to advance the cause of Black people without Calvin Rolark. And so the Washington Informer, you're holding up a great tradition representing your father's legacy and the future of the major newspaper in the nation's capital that serves the African American and other people of color communities.
Well, thank you so much for remembering him. You know, his birthday will be coming up in May. It's hard to believe he would have been, I think, maybe 92 this year. So, you know, we miss him dearly. I lost him in 94. But, you know, we've decided that the best way to hold on to his legacy, and he was an institution builder. I mean, he created the Informer, the United Black Fund, International United Black Fund. A lot of United Black Fund organizations are still going on across the country, and a couple in Africa. So, you know, we do what we feel as though we need to do to keep the legacy alive.
Well, Denise, you know, you are not only doing it with the print and digital publications, but in the community. You are known throughout Washington, D.C., the Spelling Bee. You have so much going on, the Walter E. Washington Convention Center, the everything.
The board, yeah.
On and on. So, you know, many of our publishers in the Black press, and that's something people don't seem to really grasp, it's just not about the newspaper, it's the community. Talk about that, Denise. How involved are you in the Washington, D.C., greater Washington, D.C. area?
Well, it's not just me. You know, it's something that a theme that my dad set up a long time ago. And he used to call the Washington Informer the Involved Weekly, which meant that not only were we there to cover the news, but we were there to be a part of the community in any way that we could. So, yeah, I serve on a lot of boards because that's one way to serve. But we also believe in having programs that we can engage with the community. So, like you said, the Spelling Bee, we were the first Black newspaper and the first weekly newspaper in the country to be a sponsor in the National Scripps Spelling Bee. And believe it or not, through COVID, we've held our Prince George's Spelling Bee. We're going to a couple of weeks ago. We're doing our DC Spelling Bee tomorrow, and we'll be sending 2 spellers to the National Spelling Bee in May. So we're really excited about that. And then, we had to suspend our annual African American History Tour. We started that about 10 years ago, excuse me, every February. And so we've taken DC residents, as many as 300, to places like Annapolis, historic Alexandria, historic places in Baltimore, Prince George's County. We were headed to Richmond last year. We wanted to really stretch out and go further. Of course, we've done a couple tours here in DC, and it's been a great family event. And so, we have a great team. I'm so glad to see James Wright listening in this morning, and Chevry Lassiter. We have a great team who believes in finding all kinds of ways. And of course, I couldn't continue this conversation without mentioning Ron Burke, who gets us involved in programs as well. We just had a treasure hunt at one of our local grocery stores, Safeway. The foundation is doing a food drive. And so one of our photographers and myself were running around the store. I'm taking pictures of him. We switch roles. But we wanted to be, involved in that event because we, too, are concerned about homelessness and the food insecurity in our community. So you name it, we're out there. I was in the virtual crowd for the Cherry Blossom Parade. So if anybody watches the Cherry Blossom Parade, you might see me waving in one of those little blocks. Anything you can think of that we think serves the community, that's where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And Denise, you also host Win TV every Friday afternoon at I believe 12:30, right?
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock. And Stacey, this was born out of COVID. This is one of what I call the COVID babies, because we celebrated an anniversary, our first year of Win TV last Friday. So now we're into what we call our second season. And it was a challenge. We thought that as a result of COVID, and many of our publications had to reduce our press runs. We had to, go down by, by 10,000, because stores were closed, people weren't getting out. So we were trying to figure out, how can we continue to deliver on the news that we keep producing, the content we keep producing. So Chevry and I sat down and said, let's do a show, on YouTube. And so we struck out and did it, and we just haven't looked back. And it doesn't matter if we only have one viewer, we have grown, but that one viewer, you look at the people who are commenting, and like your day's not complete unless that one viewer is there, because that keeps you motivated. So yeah, it's been a year. It's been great. We've had the mayor, we've had the Congresswoman Norton, we've had Congressman Al Green, we've had lots of biggie, personalities, and then regular folks from the neighborhood, young people, really a lot of stories about how people are surviving or have survived COVID. And now, we're turning the table, we hope. And so, we're going to see where we go from here. Schools, education, healthcare, all of those are subjects that our community is really concerned about.
Yeah, good morning to Alice Tisdale, by the way.
Yeah, good morning.
We'd love to have Alice on one day. Denise, you mentioned your staff. You mentioned Chevry. One of the things I noticed with you is that you do let your staff, you let their talents flourish. Chevry is almost acts as your boss at times. Like, who's the boss over there? But and you mentioned James. James generally tunes in with us every morning as well. We always appreciate James and the work he's doing with following statehood, DC statehood.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
I know you have been heavily invested in that movement as well. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Well, it's been a long fight, and I'm glad to have James on our staff, because in addition to being a journalist, James is a historian. So he understands in telling stories, bringing together the historical facts that give a sort of a basis and an education to our readers about certain subjects that he's pretty knowledgeable about. And so, yeah, I mean, when the Washington Informer itself was an outgrowth of the of a statehood-like movement, DC was trying to get home rule. My father, a lot of folks that came here in the late 50s, early 60s realized that they had no political rights at all. We couldn't even vote for president of the United States here in Washington, D.C. The first election that we were able to have was for the school board, and then later it became the city council and the president. So, I mean, and that's been within my lifetime. So the Washington Informer, my father said, we've got to let people know, one, that Black folks can do things, because, if you didn't have Black newspapers in this town, which we did have a few, but there's a perception, that we were takers and not givers. We weren't giving back to this community in very significant ways. And so that was what the Washington Informer was set up to do, to inform the community, to inform white folks, that Black folks were substantially helping to build the city, like we did, before it became the national city. And so we went from home rule, and out of that movement, we ended up with a Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee leader becoming our mayor, Marion Barry, and so many of them on our city council. And the fight has not ceased by political members of our local government, DC residents, all kinds of activists, and people coming to Washington, DC, recognizing that with all of the status that we have, the amount of taxes we pay, the number of residents that we have in the city, that DC should at least have a vote in Congress and 2 senators, just like every other state that's equivalent or even less than what we have. So it's an ongoing fight. It's an ongoing fight to bring awareness, even among our publishers. It surprises me sometimes that people don't understand what DC is. They love coming to the city, but they don't understand how DC operates. And we are one of the finest cities in the country. And so I was going to say the finest, but then the comments might get, we might have a battle of the cities, which is not bad. But yeah, we have one of the finest cities. We have a fantastic mayor, Muriel Bowser, and of course, our hero on the Hill, Eleanor Holmes Norton. So, we're continuing this battle, and people keep coming up with all kinds of reasons on the Senate side, and some Democrats, but mostly we've gotten that support, but on the Senate side, of why we don't deserve statehood. It's just outrageous.
Well, our executive administrator, Claudette Perry, says that Calvin Rolark is a legend in D.C. And yes, Chevry Lassiter, we are talking about you to your face. Dr. Chambers, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Yes, this is Women's History Month, and certainly the role of Black women publishers in the NNPA. You're a former chair of the NNPA. Karen Carter Richards is our current chair. Can you just speak a moment on the importance of Black women owning their own businesses, and what is the future for entrepreneurship for Black women as we move hopefully out of the COVID-19?
Well, I think, of course, it's really important not only for Black people to own their own businesses, but for women as well. And they have a lot of, I could go in a lot of directions with it, Dr. Chavis, and I'm glad you asked that question. Recently, I was interviewed, and I coined Black women publishers as the hidden figures of not only the Black press, but of the press in general. We do what we do because many of us were the children of publishers who were men. We are the widows of publishers. And so we took on the role of what our husbands and our fathers did because of out of our love for them, not because we were really striking out to be Black women publishers. And now, a lot of times we don't even give that a second thought. But the fact is that so many of us, I think I exaggerated when I said half, but I think a significant, maybe a third of the publishers of Black newspapers in this country are women. And it really annoys me when I see publications trade association publications that talk about the lack of women in leadership in the press, but they never look at us and who we are. I mean, we have to tell our own stories. That's why we exist. And I think women, in some regards, did the work that didn't equate to a business, but we cleaned houses, we washed clothes, we watched children. I mean, these are great businesses right now, and white folks make a lot of money off of it. And Black folks should have been doing the same thing, but they did do it to help to support their families. It was important for them to do this work. And out of that now, I mean, there has been this tremendous boom of Black women entrepreneurs. They're institutions, I think, that support their work. They mentor each other. It's been a very flourishing role that women are playing in, Black women particularly, are playing in society. And so I'm very proud. I mean, it's a lot of work. We juggle a lot. We're always talking about, the multiple hats that we have to wear, as women, as entrepreneurs, mothers, wives, community members, church leaders. we wear a lot of hats. But, that's why I think that we have a woman that is now the vice president of the United States, because we know how to do a lot with a little, and we can stretch dollars longer than you can stretch, a rubber band. And, I think we can multitask, and we have to do it, and it's part of our existence. So I think, I support all of these women that are doing what they're doing, and we've got to get their stories told, because we don't want them to continue to be the hidden figures that we've ignored throughout history.
Well, that's a great challenge, and certainly the NMPA, we're going to make sure that our own hidden figures are visible figures, are leaders, not only today, but of tomorrow. I know so many young African-American women are considering journalism, or considering going into ownership of various businesses that are connected to the Black press. I think there's great opportunities, and we appreciate your leadership.
It's interesting because in the District of Columbia, there's a bill, one of our council members is attempting to, hey, Al Pearsall, long time no see, but is attempting to get more statutes, memorials named after Black people in the city. And when it comes to thinking of Black women, it's always like, wow, who can we come up with? You can roll off the names of men, you can roll them off. But when we look around this country and figure out where are the monuments to Black women, there aren't many. There are very few. I think in the district there are 2. So, I think that women need to memorialize the work that we've done, regardless of how insignificant or part of our lives we think it is. If a man does it, so for some reason, they should be celebrated for it. For us, it's just what we do. And I just think that needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning to Michelle Madison, Albert Pearsall, as you noted. Wanda Bomberg-Tia, good morning.
Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Wanda Washington Green.
Wonder Woman has worked me out. I mean, she's a fantastic exercise coach. I guess she's still doing it, and I need to come see you. I've got that COVID-20.
Look out. And, Denise, you had me on your show once, and I asked you this question when I was on your show. And a lot of people may not know Denise is also she's a lawyer, and she's a Howard graduate, and she is a lawyer. Denise, can you talk about that a little bit? How you chose to, after law school, say, you know what, I'm going to take over for my dad.
That's a short story. Yeah, I mean, I got into, I wanted to go to law school because I wanted to get as far away from the publishing business as possible. My dad brought me into this newspaper when he started at the age of 9. It was my only summer job, after school job. And so when I decided to go to college, I said, I'm going to become a lawyer. And I wanted to go as far away from the city as I could, because I wanted to get as far away from the Washington Informer as I could. My stepmother was a lawyer. And so when my father married her, I used to go to the bar conventions with her. And I was always so, impressed with seeing all these Black attorneys and judges. And I just said, when I grow up, I want to be somebody like them. So I went on to college, went to undergrad, got into political science. It was like, this is not me. And went back to communications, journalism, because that just felt like something I could do and I enjoyed doing. It didn't hurt to do it. But still, I had the desire to go to law school. I went to Howard Law School. I was not, the best student, wasn't the worst either. But the thing that kept me enthusiastic about going to law school was becoming editor of the law school newspaper, The Barrister. And I did that for 2 years, did some exciting things while I was there, really began to understand the publishing business, which I had never really understood under my father. It was getting from under him that helped me. And I had to run that newspaper really with no support. So it really taught me the role or the trials and tribulations of the Black press. And once I got through that and figured out what makes it work, I was offered a job at the Federal Communications Commission. When I left, I had worked one summer there in the broadcast bureau, the radio division of the broadcast bureau. My job was to help take radio licenses away from people who didn't follow FCC rules. I'm like, how can I do that? I want to see Black radio stations and Black TV stations flourish. We didn't have any at the time, so I did not like being in that role. So I said, no, I'm going to go back, work with my dad, and I may not make any money, but at least I will have done this, get this out of my, blood. And then if I want to go back into law, I have an option to do that. I've been there since 1980 and never regretted a moment.
Well, awesome. We're glad you did. And again, shout out to Gina Baralone. She's watching Ms. B Productions. Everyone, we talked about that earlier today.
Yeah, I wish her well.
Please go to her GoFundMe page and help with those mounting medical bills. You see that picture there. A wonderful, wonderful person and a great entertainer. Dr. Chavis, I'm going to throw it to you for your last thoughts with Denise.
Well, thank you. And once again, we support the Washington Informer. I keep telling people that the Washington Informer is a local newspaper, but it's also a national newspaper. It is the Black newspaper of record for the nation's capital. And I encourage everybody to subscribe, support the Washington Informer and the great work that they continue to do, and particularly for Generation Z and millennials. If you want to really find out what is going on in Washington, check out the Washington Informer.
Absolutely. And their website, WashingtonInformer.com. And Denise's show is at 12 o'clock today at WIN TV. You can see it, Facebook at Washington Informer. And another show that you should look forward to on Sunday, every Sunday on PBS and PBS World, The Chavis Chronicles, every Sunday, 11 a.m. Check your local listings because it repeats during the week as well. The Chavis Chronicles on Sunday, WIN TV today, 12 o'clock. Women's History Month shout out goes to Ava DuVernay. Although she did not pick up a camera until she was 32, Ava DuVernay has made history as a writer, director, and producer. She was the first African-American woman to win Best Director at the Sundance Film Festival, to be nominated for a Best Director Golden Globe, direct a film nominated for a Best Picture Oscar, and direct a film with a budget of over $100 million. The National Women's History Museum pays tribute to Ava DuVernay. They mentioned that her work has made her the highest grossing Black woman director in American box office history. One of her latest projects, When They See Us, was nominated for 16 Emmy Awards, making her and Beyonce the first African-American women in primetime Emmy history to receive multiple nominations in their careers for directing. Ava was born August 24th, 1972 in Long Beach, California. As a child, her aunt, Denise, encouraged her passion for art and creativity. Her aunt worked the night shift as a nurse so she could pursue her love for art, literature, and theater during the day. She introduced Ava to the 1961 film West Side Story, and Ava fell in love with it. She learned by example that art could be a vehicle for activism. Ava DuVernay. We shout her out today, our Women's History Month shout out. Let it be known, in the words of the late Cicely Tyson, challenges make you discover things about yourself that you never really knew. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay well, wear your mask, and we will see you on Monday.